Casual Magic has been sponsored by Quiver, maker of the Quiver and Bolt deck cases and other fine deck holding accessories. Use the code CASUAL on their website for 10% off your order. We're also sponsored by Architect, the premier site for hosting your decks on the internet. I love them and they love me, and it seems like a good reason for you to use them. You can also support Casual Magic directly by going to our Patreon at patreon.com/ShivamB. And now, on with the show. Hello and welcome to Casual Magic, the show where we talk about the fun side of Magic the Gathering. My name is Shivam Bhatt, and Casual Magic is brought to you by Architect and Quiver and my patrons at patreon.com/ShivamB. I've been told that by announcing it in the beginning, it means that more of you actually know I have a Patreon, and then you'll show up. And you know what? It's actually been working, so thank you to all the new patrons who have joined me since I started letting you know I had a Patreon. Turns out it's pretty good. It's a pretty good tool to tell people that you're doing things.
Classic marketing.
Yeah, you would, I did marketing as a job for a long time. You would think I would know this. Today, I am joined by the most Merfolk master who is not professorial, Nikachu, who is out of Manitoba and do you know the Spike Feeders?
Oh yeah. I'm good friends with quite a few of them. They even invited me on their show once, and they even invited me another time, but I had a conflict with a competitive tournament that I was flying to, so missed that opportunity.
Yeah, because
maybe again.
You can just drive there, which is
yeah. I mean, yeah, I could drive there, bus there, walk there if need to.
Times. Yeah, man. Like a lot of folks have told me that they want me to talk to you because you make a lot of content on YouTube and on Twitch that is really fun and it's really enjoyable. And I'll be honest, I have a weakness for Merfolk decks, and the fact that there's somebody else out there who loves them a fish, it warms my heart. Even though, like, look, man, Prof is one of my best friends in the world, and he's terrible. So I want to know.
We love him anyway, we love him anyway.
You know what? I would not be here 252 whatever episodes in without his push. So I'm immensely grateful to our dear friend Brian up in Tulare Community College. You don't need me to actually advertise for literally the number one dude in Magic, but he's not a sponsor. I just like him.
Don't we all?
But I want to know about you though. So you've been in our pregame. You were telling me that you're not much of an arena guy, but you're more of a Mitgo guy, which honestly, like I play arena exclusively, but when I watch Magic, I want to watch Magic online. It feels purer. It feels like Magic to me.
Yeah, I mean, it simulates Magic the Gathering better. In my opinion, I like watching Magic Online content a little bit, well, actually a lot more, because I know what's going on. When it goes to MTG Arena, if there's like a lot of little cards to turn slightly and with like a weird view, like I don't know what any of this is. I'm completely lost. Whereas in the Magic the Gathering online world, everything is sort of laid out flat, and it's not glorious. It doesn't look great, but it does the job. I can keep track of it all.
It looks fantastic for 1998.
Exactly. Yeah, perfect.
It's state of the art for Windows 3.1, baby. We are flying here.
Nostalgia.
Dude, Magic Online feels as bare bones as playing old school solitaire or like billiards or something, like some free game that comes to Windows type of tier of just like, but there's no better game for actually learning the game of Magic than online, because it does not let you cut any corners anywhere. There's no... People ask me a lot, it's like, dude, do you play Commander on Magic Online? I'm like, hell no. Because it's just... I tried a few times, and 4 players, and the screens get very small, and there's like... In Commander, when you've got a lot of players and you've got a lot of cards on the table and you've got effects that happen, and there's a lot of things that we can just in paper hand wave.
Yeah, we just
Yeah,
wave
you
the
know,
hand, it resolves.
yeah, it's
Anybody,
like
everyone
just
doing anything about this? Okay, I'm just going to continue my turn and stop me.
right. No, Magic Online's like, no, everybody needs to tell me right now.
Yeah,
Are you doing a thing in response to this thing, in response to that thing? 12 things down into the stack, and you're like, I don't know where we are anymore.
yeah, yeah. Does it resolve? Does it resolve? Does it resolve? All right, how
Does
about
what
does it resolve?
resolve? Does the resolution of the resolve? I don't know anymore. Just
Yeah.
I concede. And you're like, but that was your effect. Uh, oh. So, um, you are huge on YouTube, which is amazing. Congratulations on that. That's like super sick.
Oh,
Uh,
thank you so much.
so, my curiosity for you is if you're doing like, what would you say your content is?
I have like 3 factions of content at this point. Like my
Factions?
yeah, like my main channel goes over, I don't know, some combination of really over dramatized or glamorized events in Magic the Gathering history. Whether it be like these really great plays, or I go over, of course, many cheaters and scandals. But I do other weird stuff like the greatest combos, infinite combos, Easter eggs. So a lot of other really
Yeah.
lighthearted, fun topics. So whatever comes to mind, I like to put out there.
Yeah,
Then
because like I sat and I watched a bunch of videos because I do try to do my homework to make sure I know what I'm talking about,
yeah,
and your expressiveness is so delightful, and I'm just like, damn, I want to watch him like this dude all day. It's like I find that I really enjoy it when there are people who are enjoying themselves doing the content. You could
right.
tell when the person who is making the stuff is not having a good time.
Oh
Like
yeah, yeah. They're like chained up like a
there's
ball
some
and
of our
chains.
colleagues
Mhm.
could use a break, let's say.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, it's funny you say that. When I was in high school, they said I'd be on TV one day. You weren't exactly right, but they were close. They were close. This is the TV of the future, YouTube.
Yeah, right? Like, it's like when I talk to the dudes in LRR, they're like, look, we didn't set out to create an internet television station. Here we are. Um, I don't know what it is about Canada making all the content I enjoy in Magic, but
We have nothing better to do, but we're trapped in our homes, and we don't want to go out. For anyone who doesn't like to snowboard, ski, hockey, which I'm not, none of those. I
you're
have to
not into
be inside.
hockey. Are you
No, no.
allowed in Canada?
I
Do
don't
they
know.
know?
They'd probably extradite me to some other
Like,
country
you're on
if
a
they found
list,
that
man.
out. No, no, I have no idea. I know what icing is. That's about it. That's the
Yeah,
extent that I
that's what
know about
happens
it.
when you have to get the frost off your car window, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I asked just recently, didn't they make the nets wider to somebody else to get more goals? And they're like, no, no, that never happened. But they shrunk the hockey gear. That's a regulation they did. They shrunk the hockey gear, I guess, to make it harder for them to block the puck.
That's hockey. I love hockey, but I will talk to hockey with people who know hockey so that we
Yeah,
can have a
that's not
conversation
me.
that's fun and intelligent. Because like, dude, I've been to your province and it is literally the flattest place I've ever been, and I've been around the world.
Oh, yeah, it's a wasteland. You should have been. And if you come here in winter, I mean, it's basically that Eldrazi wasteland. What was it called? Winter. What's that? What is the wastes?
Wastes,
Oh no, snow covered waste. That's what I was thinking of. Snow covered waste. That's
snow
Winnipeg.
covered.
That's
Dude,
Winnipeg right there.
snow covered waste has to be one of the biggest troll cards I've ever seen. Just snow covered wastes. It's like, why, why do you need this? Um, so you've got 3 channels, which is pretty ridiculous. But like one of them is
Mhm.
obviously just mirroring your Twitch content.
Yeah.
And how do you maintain that? Because like I find passively maintaining one channel to be enough work. And
Mhm.
by passively maintaining, I mean paying somebody else to maintain for me.
Right.
But like you've got like your live stream channel, and then what is
Mhm.
the other one you've got?
My gameplay channel. So literally, Magic the
Yeah.
Gathering is a game. We got to play it
What?
at some
Really?
point.
What?
So and that's how what keeps me engaged with the game. And so yeah, so I have my third channel is a gameplay channel called Nikachu Plays MTG. And this is where I make my Merfolk content, the Merfolk, the Pioneer, Legacy Merfolk content.
Oh,
That's
Legacy.
where, Yeah. So, if the point is, if I'm going to play the game and I'm going to practice on Magic the Gathering online, I might as well record myself doing it to some
Mm.
extent and just throw it up there on the internet for other people to enjoy.
So I'm going to ask you the default bare bones question that I ask a lot of us content creators, which is why? Why are you doing this? Because I know I'm a malignant narcissist who loves the sound of his own voice, so I
Oh,
need
yeah.
to be like telling stories all the time. So what forced you to hit record when you're just jamming games on Miko?
So, first off, I just love videos. I'm actually a film major from like many decades ago, is my first degree. So, I just love making videos. I
Mm.
just love the medium. I love the camera. The camera loves me. There's a perfect relationship for each other. And so I was very curious about YouTube, and I saw very early on there's like no one making any quality content about modern Merfolk. So I
What?
just very easily hit record because
That's a very niche, like specific.
it is very niche. It's insanely niche. But you know what the funny thing is? So it's insanely niche. But the biggest problem with competitive discourse is that it's all worthless until you show somebody how it's done. It really is. It's everyone debating one thing or another. It's like, you can't do this. You don't have that many lands in the deck. If you put two more lands, then you're going to dilute your strategy. You can't do that. That creature doesn't go in this type of
Mm-hmm.
archetype. Until you show them how it's done, no one believes you. So that was
Fact.
basically that was partially the reason for making the YouTube channel, is to make it super clear how to play Merfolk in Modern, because at the time there was a lot of disagreement and basically no one was winning, but I was. So okay, I'm gonna show how it's done. That's basically how I
When
started.
did you
I clicked
start?
record. 2014, November
Mm.
2014. So we're coming up to the decade
That's a
anniversary here.
good time, man. That's a
Yeah,
very lengthy. Actually, by the time this airs, you may well be at your 10-year mark.
that's
That's
right.
amazing.
Um,
Um,
and and the deal is, it was very niche at first, but I didn't realize it for maybe, I guess, in 5 years, maybe 4.5 to 5. But eventually I found out people weren't watching me for my Merfolk content, because I would meet people at Grand Prix and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, I watch your videos all the time." And I'm like, "Oh, you play Merfolk?" "No, I play Tron." And then if you have to another person, like, "Oh, you play Mur?" It's like, I watch you all the time." "Oh, you play Merfolk?" "No, I play Dredge." And then someone says they play Burn, they play Control, they play this, they play that. It turns out people just liked my perspective on Modern, and I guess there weren't enough people playing Modern at the time. Now there's just tons of Modern content on like all formats. It's just I wouldn't say it's saturated, but we're flooded with content creators making stuff on all the formats. But I was one of the earlier people where
Hmm.
there weren't that many options, so people chose to watch me if I played
And
against an
that was back
archetype.
when modern was still fun.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, I love modern. I play a lot of modern, or I played a lot of modern. I don't want to
Hmm.
pretend like I still do, because I play elves. And you know what is a
Oh.
terrible deck in modern? Elves. Turns out Plague Engineer and Pyroclasm and Bowmasters. When your whole deck is one toughness,
Hmm.
Bowmasters.
Oh, it's terrible. I definitely I feel all those cards, and
Oh yeah.
I really don't understand. And I posted this to like Mark Rosewater on Twitter. I don't. What is R&D's reasoning for like cards like Ren and Six,
Yeah.
Fury, and Bowmasters, which snipe off the one toughness creatures? Because I
Just
made
just incidentally destroy full decks.
Yeah, and 10 years worth of one toughness creatures. Like even in Modern right now, they're almost all unplayable. Like they have to be the most insane pushed one toughness creature to see play. Otherwise, it's a massive liability because
The only
Modern's a
way, yeah, the only way a one toughness creature sees play is if by dying it does something like
yeah.
astounding, right?
Yeah, like a Young Wolf, for example. So
Yeah.
technically Young Wolf still sees play, but like when we look at Modern, like all the one toughness creatures are dead, and then it's very also largely close to the same in Legacy. So and the problem is with formats like Legacy and Modern, you can't really waste a turn doing nothing. Because if you
Mm-hmm.
get blown out big time in one turn, I mean, there's just not a whole lot of room coming back. So if you play a 3-drop with 1 toughness and it gets killed by a Bowmaster's Wrenn 6, I
You're
mean,
not
that's,
coming back ever.
yeah, it would require you getting very unlucky and your opponent getting very unlucky, but you're basically like way on the back foot. That's just how the game is
God,
now.
dude. And the fact that they're just like randomly, ambiently, just like, yeah, and it must suck even more for you as a Merfolk player. You're drawing a ton of cards, and Bowmaster's just like pew, 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 pew.
Yep.
And you're like, oh, that's a 13-13 army right there. Love that for me. That card is goddamn egregious, and it bothers me that it exists. There, I've said it. I said it. Bowmaster's a problem.
I don't like this card. What I don't like even more is that it's not even clear to me that this is a bannable card in the competitive formats.
It's
Like in the last modern BNR announcement, they like gave some words of warning, what they're warning about in the future. Like, oh, the One Ring, we see the One Ring is a problem. No mention of Bowmasters. So I'm
yeah.
like, okay, well, I just have to live with this card in existence for eternity, I suppose.
It's just like, and you know what irks me is that folks like Forsyth and friends are like, yeah, we make Modern Horizons and we want to put in cards to help aid some of the, like, tier 1.5, tier 2 decks. And I'm like, yeah, okay, you're helping, you're giving me new elves, you're giving me new Merfolk, you're giving me new Bowmasters still exists.
Exactly.
Like, printing a bunch of brand new elves into a set that you put Fury into is like, what the hell do you want me to do, man? Like,
it's the same thing actually with Modern Horizons 1. They're like, oh, we're going to support goblins. We're going to support slivers. We're going to support all these creature decks. Plague Engineer. And then the only thing that saw play after Modern Horizons 1 was Plague Engineer. And just wiped all those decks out. I think goblins had a little bit of time in the sun, especially when Snoop got printed, but like it did not stand the test of time, and it's also just perished.
It's just so like, and these stupid cards are always the chase cards too. So everybody's going to be having your Bowmasters and your Furies and your friends. Yeah, okay, Fury's been banned. I get it, but that's not the point. The point is my deck has been banned.
yeah. The decks are super hard to adapt, but that actually gets back around to like one of my strengths as a player is that I'm willing to completely gut my deck to change it to win. So like when Plague Engineer was popular, when Wrenn and 6 was a problem, and also especially when Fury and Bowmasters was printed, I reduced the number of 1 toughness creatures in my deck. Like I stopped playing with Silver Gill Adapt. I reduced, for a very large chunk of 2024, I only played with Hexcatcher, Vodalian Hexcatcher, which is a 1/1 Flash Lord. And then everything else had 2 toughness or higher, because the risk to play with a 1 toughness creature is just way too high in the format. Way too high. And to all the people who said that Fury wasn't worth banning, I can tell you as a Merfolk player, it helped a lot. It helped, all right. It did help a lot. It didn't unban 1 toughness creatures, but it unbanned 2 toughness creatures.
Dude, who thought that putting out those stupid elementals was a good idea? Like all 5 of them are such like, hey, you know what's great? Let's have free Thoughtseize and then free friggin' 4 damage. And it may get to be real heated.
The funny thing is that Grief wasn't even very good when it came out. It was just, it was like it was a full year later that they broke it, and then we had to. I'm gonna be easy on R&D here. I would have never guessed that these undying effects would see competitive play.
No,
it looks like jank draft chaff.
I will be honest, like I respect the hell out of the people who figured out that you can just take like the 23rd pick out of the last 5 sets and turn it into like modern winning. Like,
oh yeah, it was a complete tier 1 to tier 0 deck for a very long time.
Those cards are garbage. We wouldn't play them in anything, and suddenly it's just like, oh, what if I him to Turok you for free? And you're like, I don't like that.
And it's super him to Turok because you get to choose the 2 cards.
Right, and you get to have a thing left over.
Yeah, the 4/3 menace creature on turn 1. Well, that's just great.
Yeah, like sure. NBD, perfect. Love that for me. Anyways, I did not mean to immediately get right into blood pressure town, but I hate the fact that I loved Modern for a long time and they made it completely unplayable for me.
You know, it's
It's
funny.
just like it's not fair, man.
What at what point did you drop out? Because you say you were like a former modern player.
Yeah, like I played elves pretty regularly and just for like funsies. I mean,
Hmm.
not competitively, but like it was my
Yeah.
competitive format of choice up until like let's say 2018, 2019. Right, is when I think Modern Horizons 1 is actually when I stopped,
Yeah, yeah.
because
Modern
Modern
Horizons One.
Horizons
That was
1
like
was
the
like,
last. Yeah,
oh
the final nail.
yeah, like because all the decks after MH1 were just MH1 decks and they're
Hmm.
not elves decks. And so like when MH3 is like, hey, we're gonna give you some brand new cool reprints and like stuff, I'm like, yeah, great new cards that'll die to freaking.
Yeah, I mean, I think especially cards like Bowmasters, I don't really like how it's holding back so much of the card pool. I love new powerful cards, but not so long as it like
I want
wipes
new
out.
options. I don't want less options.
Yeah, exactly. So cards like Bowmasters doesn't add to the game. I think it's taking a lot more away from the game. Like all of a sudden, Noble Hierarch and yeah, basically
Yeah,
every mana dork is useless.
right.
And there's not even that many one things to do on turn one for a lot of decks. There just isn't in the metagame today. And then if you get rid of, say, Bowmasters, you at least give some options. In the grand scheme of things, there's just not a lot of great things to do on turn one. But at least they were playable so long as one toughness is like allowed to live. But now that one toughness is not a high enough bar. They're like only Delighted Halfling is like the basically the
Mm.
mana dork of choice
Hmm.
from here.
Yeah, and I'm like, I love Noble Hierarch. I love Mono Ramp. I love playing like Mono Green Tron. I love playing like just, I mean, Pod. I love Pod, but Pod's got its own problems. I don't think bringing Pod back would be an upside here. However, it's just it feels sad that all of the they're like you can play Murktide or you can play Murktide, and I'm like I don't want to play Red Blue. I don't want to play freaking Phoenix or Murktide. I hate these decks. I
Hmm.
want to play big creatures that do dumb things or combo you out with the swarm. Watsy.
Yeah, the combo swarm thing. So if I were an Elves player, I'd be like, well, we got to go beefier and bigger. Like there's the you got
You got to
you
go to black and you got to go like dump as many elves as you can and then drop Shaman of the Pack and fireball them to the face, right? Like,
maybe, but it's got to involve a bunch of elves that don't have one toughness. So like
yeah,
that'd be the only
that's
way
a
to adapt
very
it.
that's a very hard challenge to beat.
I know it's a tall order.
There's like, ooh, I could play a 3/3 Elven Warriors. Hmm.
It's too bad Delighted Halfling's not an elf, right? It's like
Yeah, why would they make the
a
best
halfling,
Monodork
right?
in history not an elf?
Yeah, there we go. Well, because it was a Lord of the Rings thing. They could have given it the cosmetic thing. It could have been like some elf, and then it just was Delighted Halfling as that sort of Godzilla look.
You know what kills me is that Lord of the Rings is a setting known for elves.
Oh yeah, it's true
It's
actually.
Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
It's Lord of the
they
Rings.
gave
It's
the mana dork
Legolas.
to the hobbits.
And the whole damn point is elves, and the best card in Lord of the Rings is the Elf Killer.
That's right. This
It's
is
offensive.
crazy. I just found out Delighted Halfling's also a citizen. That's just weird. It's the
You know
citizen of
what?
the
Great for my
Shire.
citizen decks.
Yeah.
I can pull out my Acacian money changers, and we
Yeah.
can we can go to town. When did you start playing?
I started playing a long time ago. I believe I started playing in 1999. I say 1999.
Noob.
It was right before Invasion came out. I know that because I don't know what the time distance
Yeah,
was. I can tell you my first booster I opened was a Mercadian Masks booster, but I know the next set that came out was Invasion, and
yeah.
it was a big
Invasion came
hype.
out like in 2000 October ish.
Yeah, and everyone was like, "Oh, multicolor is back, multicolor." Anyway, I didn't know any of the difference to any of this stuff. See, here's an interesting thing about my backstory. So when I started playing Magic, I started with just a mono blue permission deck. It was just a bunch of islands and a bunch of
Mm.
counter spells, and my only win condition was Thieving Magpie, which is a 4 mana 1/3 with flying, and when it deals damage, it draws a card. And so
Classic.
and that's the only way I could win. I did in fact lose some games where I drew most of the cards in my deck, and then like because the thing you have to draw the card when you deal damage with
Yeah,
this. So
you can
anyway,
mill yourself with that guy real easy.
I got to end up. Yeah, if I take too good of control of the game, but I'm not dealing enough damage, I will still lose. Anyway, the deck evolved, and the interesting thing is that when you're forced into one color, you do have to think outside the box to
Hmm.
win games that you normally couldn't. And then that's where like I would have to play with Navineral's Disc as like
Mm-hmm.
destruction, and Powder Keg and Wasteland. I was playing with Quicksand at the time. This is a land that can give an attacking creature -1,
-1.
-2.
Yeah,
Um,
that card sure existed.
yeah. So anyway, and I still feel that way about Magic. So I love playing this Merfolk deck because I get to play mono blue. It's a little bit more tricky with creatures. I'm definitely way more creature based than I was before, but I
Mm.
still got them counter spells and the tricky artifacts and tricky lands. I just love that that part of the game and the challenge of making the best from just a single color.
Yeah, I think like that's one thing that I miss about old Magic because I started around Revise the Dark. Is like I miss having a silo where your decks were just soft to some things. Like
Yeah.
you were just gonna die unless you found some weird garbage card that was only good for this one purpose, but by God, it kept you alive. And that, like, I don't know. I mean, my first deck was like blue white, like walls and permission spells and Sarah Angel and Mamodi at the top.
There
But
we go.
there were so many like red wards and circle of protection blacks and whatever
Yeah.
that I would just be running to protect myself. I mean, you have to run like trash to keep your stuff alive. And I think having 600,000 cards every day means that we don't have as much opportunity to uh, really explore how to get garbage to work for you. Like,
Yeah, like the more niche cards are losing ground, especially since they're really pushing the power level of all the other cards now.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's why
so
one of my favorite ways to play is Boxing League, which is like you take a single box and build a commander deck or whatever out of
yeah,
it. It feels like both old school block constructed, it feels like sealed, and it forces you to use every card in a set.
right.
And that means like cards that are just limited fodder or cards that, and I just like it because it reminds me of being a kid again, of being
Hmm.
like, hey, look, these are the cards I have. That means I'm going to be playing this, like, 7 mana 4/4 or whatever that does literally nothing, but it's here and fits my need. And that just like, I miss that. I think that was a delight. And so, I mean, I'm not saying constructed is not great because obviously it's gotten a lot better recently,
Right.
especially,
Hmm.
but it just feels like decks just start optimized. Like
Yes.
there's even, it doesn't matter what format you're in. It feels like there's just a certain tier of like, if you want to hang with this, you need to be all synergies and you can't dirtle around. And
Hmm.
it feels like it takes away some of that creativity.
It does, but I think all formats, at least in the competitive realm,
Mm,
especially for Pioneer and Modern, I don't think there's enough creativity around. So I think there's still room that if you put a lot of effort into it, you can, bring life, especially Pioneer right now. I think there's a lot of just people copying the best deck list
yeah.
and then they run with it as much as possible. And then to police the format, you just ban the deck because it's really strong. I think there's actually a lot of room to build something completely new from the ground up. But it's going to be really hard to do it with the niche cards. You still are going to have to utilize the super powerful cards of
Mm,
today. There's more or less no getting around it.
pretty much. But like, I think Pioneer feels like early modern did. It
Hmm.
feels like there's still room to explore. You can still have weirdo decks and it's not quite as locked in.
Yeah.
Like I play mono green devotion in Pioneer with the ley lines and then dropping a bunch of big creatures because it's
Yeah.
like it's not a top tier deck, but it wins conclusively when it wins,
It,
and
wa-
it's just
well, it was a top tier deck. They banned
yeah,
like 12 cards out of that thing
yeah,
to
okay,
put it
fair,
where it is
fair,
now.
fair. It used to be a top tier deck. I
Yeah.
guess
Yeah.
I guess that's a little disingenuous. I did discover it when it wasn't a top
Yeah.
tier
Yeah.
deck.
Yeah. At the remnants after like its many bannings.
So why Merfolk?
So, I mean, like going back to before, I just love mono blue. I love counter spells. You can hate me for it. I love the counter spells. People hate it when their stuff gets countered, but I mean, there's maneuvering around counter spells.
In a one-on-one game, I am okay with counters. I mean, I get salty and mad because you took away my thing, but I'm a lot more okay with it than I would be in like multiplayer games just
Hmm.
because you have far fewer turns in a multiplayer game for the time spent. And getting your spells out is a lot more of a premium than in like a single player game. Oh, you counter my spell. Okay, well, I'll just cast the next one in like 3 minutes. It's fine.
Okay.
Uh, Whereas like 45 minutes and like the one thing I do, you stuff, and then I have to wait another hour for my turn to come back around.
Especially that in that late portion of the game.
Yeah, it's just like it feels bad.
So
But
so
go
getting
ahead.
back to Merfolk though, like it's got enough trickiness to it that I find it really stimulating because
Mm,
especially if you're playing it at the level that I do, I'm constantly doing this sort of. So first off, like let's get this out of the way. Merfolk are just a bunch of like weak crap. They're
yes.
like they aren't that there's nothing outside of the new card that they just made, Harbinger of the Seas, which is now the
Hmm.
blue blood moon. That is like the most powerful card I've played with in about a decade. And it because it can just win games. You just throw it on the board, and there's a lot of games where my opponent's like, "Oh, I don't have a basic land," and that's it. The game is basically over. But outside of that, like all the other games, there you have basically a bunch of garbage grizzly bears or like a random 3/2, or they all have this nice ability, but you have to line it up properly with your opponent's threats. Like Tashana's Tidebinder can counter triggered or activated abilities, but
Hmm.
you got to hold on to it for that right moment when they're going to do that. You have to be prepared. You also have to know that your opponent has cards in their deck that you would want to hit with that Tashana's Tidebinder. Sometimes you know, okay, my opponent doesn't have anything in their deck I want to counter a trigger with. So you just throw it out there and attack. So it's a really stimulating deck at a competitive level, and you have to play super, super tight.
Yes.
It is one of these type of archetypes because it's so weak and has no power and no comeback potential that you make one mistake, you're just smoked, you're dead. It even happens to me. I make an error, and that could be the entire match right then and there. But you know what? I love the challenge. I don't mind. I don't mind playing a deck like this. It's not for everybody, but it's definitely for me.
Yeah, and then you use Aether Vials and just like, ramp it out and just happen to have a free counterspell in your hand or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, I found Merfolk, like when I played Merfolk, it was basically oops all lords type of Merfolk. Like, ooh,
Yes.
look, it's my Regeries and my Lord of Atlantis. And
Hmm.
like, it's gotten so much better since then. Like, I mean, Svelyun is a cool card.
Oh yeah.
Glasspool Mimic shows up in these lists sometimes.
Hmm.
But Mono Blue Blood Moon is so funny to me because, like,
I still don't even believe they made this
I
card.
don't know. I don't understand why they would do like it's so weird. However, in a deck where all your things get island walk, it is funny as hell.
Yeah, it was definitely called out as one of the most frustrating printings of 2024, and seeing play outside of Merfolk. I mean, if you're just like a blue deck, like maybe an Is It Wizard deck, or you're a Murktide deck, and you have enough basic lands, you just throw it out there, and it's a great solution to so many non-basic lands. But it's such a feel bad card. But I guess we're so
It's
used to like Magus of the Moon and Blood Moon effects that maybe it technically shouldn't be that different. The only big difference is turning your opponent into something mono blue doesn't let you kill this thing. Whereas with Blood Moon, there's tons of red removal
mhm.
spells that would always kill a Magus of the Moon.
Yeah.
Although it was still difficult to beat an actual Blood Moon. But this is Blood Moon with feet or fins, I should say.
This is Blood Moon with counterspell backup.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, yeah, with
This is
also with
Blood
counter
Moon with a
spells.
force of negation in your hand. Is what this
Mm-hmm.
is.
No,
It's just like it's
totally.
funny to me because like it drives home how greedy Magic players are with their mono bases these days.
Yes.
And like really, if you don't run even one basic in your deck, you probably deserve to get hosed by a Magus or a Harbinger or whatever.
Hey,
It's
you said it, not me. Like, because going back to like playing a monocolor deck and squeezing the most life out of it, there
mm,
is like in 2024, there is almost zero advantage going monocolor.
oh
Almost
yeah,
nothing. Like, if I go through every single archetype, there is almost every single competitive deck is going to splash at least one color. Like
yeah.
you are such an anomaly if you stay rigid in one just in either
Unless you're playing
mono
like
blue, mono
goblins or
red.
something, maybe.
Even goblins usually splashes black, but no, it's true. Some goblins decks will go mono red. They did in Legacy until name sticker goblin got banned. So big
I
sad face for
love,
them.
I know that legacy players super hate like unsets and commander sets and stuff, but I love it when really stupid cards pop up in like pro tour legacy decks and they're just
Oh
like,
my god,
God, why is this in here?
I was so scared every legacy event my opponent would be playing goblins, and I would have to like learn what stickers are. Or it's not even goblins actually. Like I think name sticker goblin was like slightly more easier to understand, but like there's so many sticker mechanic cards, and I'm like, I don't want to know what this stuff does. I don't want to call the judge and then they have to look up on their phone how this works because they also don't know how it
Yeah,
works.
dude, I'm the casual guy, and I don't want to know how stickers work. Now, like contraptions and stuff are fun. Stickers were just like, and the biggest problem with them is that the cards, a large number of the sticker cards didn't do anything. They were just cosmetically like put another hat on this thing. It's like
Oh, okay.
what?
Maybe it has synergy with former unstable cards where you get +1/+1 for each creature that has a hat.
You know, that's pretty much it. Yes, but but the thing is though, it's like there's a few cards that show up and then just like Cosmo or like Namesticker Goblin, and it's
Right.
just like, oh no, we made a real card by accident. Saw in half. That's another one of the
Right.
real
Yeah.
cards
Yeah.
they made.
Yeah. Hmm.
Uh, it's funny though. It's like whatever. Like I don't know. I think it's fun when I think it's really funny to watch serious Magic players have to figure out goofy nonsense.
Right. Right. Yeah. 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 Oh yeah.
Like
It happens. What is the
yeah,
another goofy
conspiracies
thing?
and like
Hmm.
initiative and do you
Oh,
prefer
initiative was an absolute disaster.
God,
Oh
I
man.
love initiative so much, but I play multiplayer, so initiative is
Yeah.
great.
It means nothing there. It is so OP in one on
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, initiative and like Monarch. Monarch is a fantastic multiplayer mechanic, and in one-on-one, it is broken.
It is very strong. It is not initiative power, but it is very
Well,
strong.
yeah, because initiative gives you what if you had Monarch but 10 Monarch?
Exactly. Yes. Monarch on steroids.
And it doesn't help that like the stupid initiative cards like was a white plume adventure or whatever,
Yes.
and like seasoned veteran or something. It's just like insane cards.
Well, the funny
Uh,
thing is, like, that stuff got dumped into the card pool immediately, and then there was like a vintage championship, something like 2 or 3 weeks away after. And it turns out Mono White Initiative was like above and beyond the best deck in the
that's so
tournament. So like
that's
so
so funny.
basically overnight these initiative cards just like turned vintage on its head. Yeah.
So let's talk about so how did you discover competitive play? Like do you consider
I'm
yourself you
oh
consider
yeah.
yourself more of a competitive type?
I would say I'm always competitive. Like I would say I played in the Pokemon trading card game tournament league, and I went to Pokemon trading card game tournaments. So I played Pokemon before I got into Magic the
See, I
Gathering.
feel like we didn't do any of your background. We should do that part. When did you start playing card games? Like you picked up a Pokemon first?
Probably 1990. I want to say 1990. Ugh, you see, the thing is, they got rid of our
Old.
DCI thing. I would be able to look it up. Maybe it was 1997, 1998, somewhere around there. I want to say I only played Pokemon, or maybe I was collecting the cards in like
Hmm.
1997, and then I started joining leagues and tournaments 1998, 1999, and then finally graduated to Magic in the year 2000 or something like that.
The Pokemon card game doesn't make any sense to me. I have to try to learn it for my kid, and I'm just like, why don't you just collect the cards and pick the ones that you like that are pretty, and let me not think about the mechanics of this. And I only have room for one card game. I don't
Right,
want
right,
to learn
right.
another.
I don't know what
So,
else inspired me to go play the tournaments, but I was playing with my friends, and we
hmm,
had our own rule zeros for Pokemon. Because like in Pokemon, you're only supposed to play one energy a turn. That's like playing one land a turn. But
yeah.
like the game was like super boring that way. So we had like the rule zero. Oh, you can put as many energy as you want on a card. So we can actually pull off these cool abilities on all these
Yeah.
Pokemon.
And
But then
like,
mhm.
I don't know. I'm just like, you can put energy on your dudes on the bench. And I'm like, God, this is such a glacially slow game.
Well, it's slow unless you played it at the competitive
Well,
level.
yeah.
So it was a weird game. Like long story short, when I was playing back in like 1999, if you net decked, you will have a 99.99% win percentage because everyone else who is like either a small child or their adult parent they were not net decking. They were playing like just a bunch of slop decks. Like I mean, they've got insane cards in that game. Like 0 mana, draw 2. 0 mana, discard your hand, draw 7 cards. 0 mana, discard 2 cards from your hand, tutor a card from your deck into your hand. To then play 0 mana discard hand, draw 7. I mean, you go through your deck like crazy, and also
That's
all for nothing. It's like basically a super vintage deck back then. It's basically how it is. If you looked at the meta way back in the day.
super vintage is such a good descriptor of it,
Yeah.
because like that's what playing casual Pokemon feels like sometimes. Just super vintage. You're like tutoring and drawing 7 all the time.
Yeah.
Uh,
They still do that. I can't believe it. I was like, thought they'd save this game by balancing it. No, they didn't.
no,
But that's what
because they
people like
realize
that.
that the target audience is between 7 and 14. That is not an audience of people who care about game balance. That's an audience that cares about big cool thing.
Yeah. See, it's the Yu-Gi-Oh crowd. That's that new age crowd.
You know, it's wild to me they call it that, but Yu-Gi-Oh is like got an encyclopedia on every card, and
Yeah.
the cards are also like a third of the size of a normal card. So you're like, what?
Yeah, that's it. It's even worse. It's an invert. This is the wrong
not,
direction. We expanded the text box, but we shrunk the card at the same time. Corporate wants you to add more words, but shrink that text box. Shrink
this is
the card.
not a. This is you're not moving in a useful direction, people.
Yeah.
So then, oh, what the hell? So, what do you play in Legacy? I'm gonna guess Merfolk.
Oh yeah, it's still Merfolk. I think I only do it because it's like on brand now. But like I used to play Delver, like when I first got into Legacy. I was playing Sultai Delver. I guess I would be playing something like Blue Red Delver by today's standards if I didn't move away, because I still like that sort of archetype. But I have been able to make like Merfolk work. I will say, like, I made Pioneer Merfolk really work. Like we're talking about the exploration. I literally top-aided a Pioneer challenge into a Pioneer challenge victory with Simic Merfolk in the meta game with Amalia and vampires. In fact, my top 8 was just loaded with Amalia and vampires. I destroyed.
Well, that's a very Ixalan heavy Pioneer set, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Merfolk, Amalia, and vampires. Yeah, let's go. Yeah, dude, I think actually the Simic card that Ixalan gave to Merfolk are really, really cool and are really, really fun. So, like, I think it's neat when, like, I didn't expect Merfolk to branch out to green, but I think it's a really interesting and fun way to do it. Because, like, I don't know, those decks are hella fun to play. Like Pioneer, I love that it lets you play weird synergy decks that would not fly in Modern, but actually can survive, because guess what? Bowmasters doesn't exist.
That's right. It's way more dirtily. There's like way more room to be playing these types of creature-based decks, and way more creature-friendly. That's for sure.
I don't know. I lost yesterday to 3 stupid Angel decks in a row, so I'm getting a little grumpy about playing Pioneer now, because like you don't need to play an Angel and get 38 life. Stop that, please.
Yeah, that's the counter the creature decks. You play a creature deck that gains a boatload of life.
Yeah. I'm just trying to play Ulamog on turn 2. Am I such a bad guy?
How do you even do that? Is that possible?
Well, when you have like 4 ley lines that drop on turn 0, and then you put like Nykthos and Sunken City and Nykthos, and then you tap Nykthos for like 20, and you're like, Ulamog? And they're like...
Yeah. You could have like 3 ley lines, turn 1 Llanowar Elves, turn 2 Nykthos, add like 13. Boom,
and it's enough for Ulamog to show up, and it's just a good time. Let me just exile your 2 lands and play.
Right.
Yeah, and then they're like, so 10-10, you say, with Annihilator.
And you have no lands. I've destroyed your lands.
Yeah, it's like, no, NBD, you're fine. Surely you've got something in. Oh, you're saying they didn't reprint Path? Oh, you're saying you're playing Black Red. Gosh, well, I guess that's
you're in for a hard time.
I guess we'll have to solve that problem when we get there. What do you prefer to, like, if you didn't have to do this for the memes, what would you be playing?
What would I be? I would still be playing Merfolk in Modern, probably, because I keep winning with it.
Well, if you can make it work.
Yeah.
Probably. I remember the last Modern GP I went to in LA, Merfolk won, but that was a long time ago.
Well, I still
2018, 2017, I don't know. But it was cool. It was like, oh my God, a tribal deck won. Wow, really? Yeah. In Modern?
Oh, you're saying in LA?
Yeah.
Oh, that was 2016.
Yeah. Yes. Why? Did you win that?
No, I didn't win that. No, but that was funny. Like a Merfolk player won in 2015, another Merfolk player won in 2016, and then I made it to the finals in 2017, but I couldn't complete the hat trick. Ended up losing in the finals of a Grand Prix.
No, that would have been so cool.
Yeah, I know. 3 in a row, we could pull it. We could. It just proves that like if you play this deck well, it obviously has more than it looks. And
Yeah.
the experienced Merfolk players in the community, they can win with this deck quite regularly. Even though it's a big challenge, and it asks you to, again, to play smart, but also don't make any mistakes. But it's there. It's possible. Look, there's enough proof of concept with enough other
Mm.
players.
I
It's
think
there.
one of the things I just really miss is single deck specialists. Like I
Mm.
miss the old days of SE coverage or whatever, where you'd be like, you know, Feline Longmore sitting here playing High Tide for the
Yeah,
38th time or
exactly.
whatever. You're like, man, I love High Tide's one of my favorite decks in Magic. But just like I love people who are like, you know what, even though the metagame is entirely 100% in favor of making my deck into like, like sawdust, I'm still going to play this because this is my deck.
Yeah,
And
it's your deck,
I respect that, man.
or you can work to adapt it like I have. And I think these days,
Mm.
like, you do have to put in the work. Like sometimes I had to spend like a month and a half till I found like the right combination. And there's some risk to that because like it's possible Wizards prints a new set that just invalidates my deck completely,
Mm.
or something. So like the amount of effort you have to put in to keep your deck up is becoming somewhat tougher and tougher over time, especially if there's no community based around it. So like if you're in a community of Tron or Merfolk or Amulet or maybe Death Shadow, there's going to be
Amulet.
enough people working around the clock to discover things for everybody. But then if you're part of like I don't know how big the High Tide community is, but there are some decks that have no community attached to it, or
I'm
there's
guessing
very,
High
very
Tide
few.
probably hasn't changed much in the past 20 years because it works.
Well, it works
When it
until it
works, it
doesn't work.
works. Yeah.
That's the problem. So
There's
like,
not a lot of room for innovation in High Tide.
oh, okay.
I mean, like, think about it. Your key card like Palancron, right? Like, they're not
Mhm.
printing another Palancron. They're not printing another High Tide. They're
Well,
certainly not giving you better draw sevens than Time Spiral and Time Twister.
maybe it's a weird mana ramp deck, you know? Maybe it doesn't have to like go off with what was it called? The Candelabra Thanos
Yeah, basically,
and
you're
so
just
on.
sitting there with Candelabra and going up, and then you mill them out
Yeah,
with
so
like,
maybe there's a different angle of taking high tide that no one's explored. But anyway, the this cost to explore is now becoming higher and higher,
yeah,
and people just are sort of fed up, and they're a little bit more. They want to gravitate to the stronger decks by default, but at the same time, that has a cost too because you're constantly buying the new cards to keep chasing the top tier deck, which could also get replaced no in a year or less.
right. Or if it's too top tier, it'll get replaced this year.
Yeah, yeah.
It
They're gonna
just,
ban something from it.
yeah, it's so. I mean, I feel like I'm rehashing old ground here when I just say it is annoying that eternal formats rotate, but it's
Mhm.
also that's what's going to happen when you just keep dumping cards into eternal formats. They're going to get new cards. New cards are going to get new combos, and then things are going to break. I mean, I think it's fun when like weird. I mean, for all that I hated the Grief Fury deck, that was such a cool idea and cool
Oh yeah,
innovation and cool new way to think. I'm like, it was like the first real new deck in a long time in Modern that
it
did something
had.
just completely out of nowhere.
Yeah, it's really nice to see a deck with personality.
Mm,
Like I like Death Shadow has its own personality. You basically want to kill yourself to be able to kill your opponent.
yes,
There's what's it called? Then you've got those life gain decks. You have Tron. Tron is its a huge
or
identity. Three
Lantern.
lands. Lantern Control has its own identity. So those decks are very, very cool. And Scam, the black red Scam deck also had that sort of identity.
Yeah, I think it's nice when like I love it when like random breakout decks show up and people are like, "Oh my god!" Like at Pioneer, I did not see the vampire deck coming, but that's also because I'm not like looking for Pioneer combos or whatever. So when it showed up in the Pro Tour, and I was just like, "Oh, this is the coolest deck I've ever seen," and it's out of like because I remember I was talking to someone, I'm like, "How did you even think of this stupid Sorin that came out in this core deck that the core set that literally nobody was like playing or buying or looking at or thinking about?"
Mhm.
And they're like, well, it plays things for free, so I just keep it in my head. And I'm like, I can't be a competitive player. I would never think of keeping a random garbage card from a set nobody bought to be like the card.
What
And
made it a
then,
little bit easier is that that red black deck was like mostly a deck already.
Mm,
that had a bunch of vampires. So when I guess the final piece of the puzzle was the Vein Ripper, and they're
which is
like,
such a good card.
that is a pretty good card, but it's like a little expensive at 6 mana. Let's cheat it and play
Yeah,
with
what
this
happens if it's
Sorin.
free mana?
Yeah. What if it's 3 mana? And, there's a bunch of other vampires in this deck already. Does that work? Yeah, it works really great. And then, yeah, I ended up winning Approach War. And actually, then just dominated Pioneer. Actually, it finished, I think it was still at 30% of the metagame at the time it was banned.
Dude, the fact that that stupid card is just like, ward, sack a creature, and then do a ton of damage to you whenever a creature dies. And I was just like,
Mhm. Yeah,
it's just like,
it looks invincible. But I have the answer to this card
oh,
in my Merfolk deck. And the
counter
answer
spell.
was like Witness Protection.
Witness protection.
That's
Turn
right.
it into a
Witness.
fish.
Yes, it turns into a 1/1 human citizen, but basically it turns it into a frog because we call them in the Merfolk community. We call them the frog effects cards, like Eaten by Piranhas and Witness Protection. They just lose
That's
all their abilities and just become like 1/1s. And so with Simic Merfolk, you also make a lot of tokens with Deeproot Pilgrimage. So you like sack a creature, no big deal. But it actually was a really good counter. So yeah, they play this Vein Ripper. I turned it into a nothing, and then I kill their Sorin, either in the air or just swarm it, and then they have nothing. They invest a lot of mana into this thing,
yeah.
into their
And then
Sorin
they're
and
like,
their
but it's a 1/1 guy who just walking around, and you're
yeah, not my
like,
problem now.
you must love the card Dress Down.
Oh, I don't play it, but I really admire the card a lot. Yeah, there's no room to play it in Merfolk in Modern or Legacy, or not yet, I should say. One day maybe I will reach for it because it
Yeah,
also
like
turns my Merfolk off.
that's the thing. Like I don't like it very much because I'm like, all my creatures do things, and I don't want to not do things.
Yeah,
I want to take advantage of you dying, but it's very good for turning like Murktides into nothing.
or
Um,
ETBs. I do play in Commander. Great card in Commander.
I have never tried it in Commander, but I also don't play blue, so that's
Is that
I'm.
like a
It's like,
no color? That's like the rule 0. I'm not going to offend you with blue.
well, no, it's just more like I just like ramping into big creatures.
Okay, yeah.
And
I don't
so,
ramp
like,
into
I mean,
anything.
mind you, I do play blue into things that I just don't play like traditional blue. I'm playing like big air monster blue or sea serpent blue or
Right.
I don't know. This right now, I'm literally building this card, Council of Four,
Okay.
which is. Have you heard of this card from Baldur's Gate? It's
Uh, I
basically it's
probably
like a
read it
group huggy
before.
thing, which says like whenever a player draws their second card, you draw a card, or
Okay.
whenever they cast their second spell, you get a night token. So you're
Hmm.
just feeding people cards and having them cast spells and just ambiently
You're
building up my
Santa.
army. Yeah, it's great. It's like a very not me type of deck, but I'm just like, I'm tired of playing the types of decks I play. So I would like to see what it's like to play a passive deck for once.
Right.
Um, so what do you think of the state of like these eternal formats nowadays? If you're making a ton of content every day, how do you keep
Mhm.
doing it when everybody's playing Bowmaster and you're just going online and you're just getting wrecked over and over again by the same meta decks?
So the deal is, my key thing that my only superpower. Well, I wouldn't say it's my only superpower. The one thing that really defines me in the Merfolk community, above and beyond everyone else, and I think every other community should follow suit, is that when you're losing, you have to change something.
Mm,
All right, you were only winning before because your deck interacted well with the metagame, and also the other decks didn't interact with you very well in the
mm,
metagame. So if all of a sudden you're losing, that means their decks are interacting better versus you, and you're not interacting well with them. So
mm,
you have to change cards. You really have to critically look. Okay, like, yeah, you've played this card for the last 8 years. It was always stock in the list, always worked, but now you're losing. Does this card do what you want it to do today? Like, really, really critically look at it. Is it
mm.
really going the distance? Is it actually winning you games, or is it just delaying the game till you die? And you have to cut it. You have to cut it. And you got to replace it with something else. So something I've done over and over and over again for the last decade is I've cut the sacred cows from Merfolk, and I'm not afraid to cut Lord of Atlantis if I have to. So there's
What?
no sacred cows for me. I will cut the cards, and that's just part of how I enjoy the game. Like it's like a challenge. There's some build out there if I put the effort in. There's got to be some way. And to be fair, Wizards has been kind to me by actually printing me some pretty relevant Merfolk over the last few years, like Vidalian Hexcatcher, Tashana's
Mm,
Tidebinder, Flare of Denial, Subtlety. They gave us Sphaloon. They gave us
yes.
Tide Shaper. That's Harbinger of the Seas, Flare of
What?
Denial, Sink It to Stupor. They actually gave us a lot of tools. So thanks
Yeah,
so
they give you a
much.
brand new deck practically.
Yeah, I mean it's completely different from like 2014. The cards are not even recognizable. So
Yeah, where's Marrow?
yeah, where'd Mara Regery go? Yeah, it's gone. So the point is that part of my enjoyment of the game is
Mm,
solving this puzzle. And so
yes.
I'm actually not that shaken up by change as other people, because people just like they buy their 75 and they don't want to change anything. And then if the deck doesn't win anymore, they would actually prefer to scrap the entire 75 and buy a whole new deck. Whereas
Mm,
I'm like, okay, which cards just aren't working in the 75? What do I have to replace? And then which card is it that's going to help me win versus these new top decks? And then once I discover that, that's like it's a great feeling to discover, okay,
God,
this is the deck that actually works.
that is
This is
such a good insight. Like I'm just thinking about this. I'm like, damn, that is like because you're right. There's people who will get into an internal format and they will be
mhm,
ossified. They will be like, this is my deck. I'm playing this forever. It's not changing. These are the cards I like. These are the things I do. And then you go from winning to just gradually losing and losing and losing and
yeah,
losing. And then you're like, what what do you want me to do?
yeah,
But they haven't looked at the cards in the deck individually as like since they built it, right? Like they're
right,
just there. They're
hmm,
just ambiently there. They're locked in place. And like when you're adding or thinking about new cards, you're not thinking about cutting any of the old ones. You're
hmm,
just like, oh, will this card slot into my deck or whatever? But those cards are just like permanently just your eyes gloss past them when you're looking at the list. But
yes,
if you sit there and actually have, if you want to be a single deck specialist or you want to be a single, format like idealist or whatever, you need to sit and look at those cards and be like, hey, man, this is great for 2013. Is it great for 2024? Is it going to do anything in this environment?
right,
And sometimes that means like that's one of the reasons I stopped playing modern is because I sat and I did that check for elves. I sat and I
hmm,
looked at my deck and I'm like, how can I make this work? And what I realized is that the amount of effort it would take to make it work today is more than I want to put into a format that I only play ambiently.
hmm,
Like
yeah,
so like I mean, I took apart my Legacy Elves deck. I didn't take apart my Modern Elves deck, but I'm pretty close because there's like a bunch of caverns sitting in there.
okay,
But like, it's just like it's more about do you like if you want this to work, you can't just complain about other cards existing. You have to sit and actually look at your deck and say like, okay, what can I change about this that will keep the framework of what I like about this deck
hmm,
while still being able to win? Because you don't want to transform it so far that it's not the deck you wanted to play,
right.
but you don't want to
Yeah,
just sit there and like not like you don't losing all the time sucks.
yeah, losing all the time does suck. I mean, if I told you a mid-range elf deck could exist, where you go on like you play big creatures and you go on the beat down, and you play what's called Yavimaya and Llanowar. Oh, what is this Llanowar? There's that Llanowar something that gives all your elves +1/+1 in Forest Walk. Would you be in for that type of deck?
Hell yeah, I would. Are you kidding me? That
And
sounds exact. Like
I
I love mid range decks.
Yeah, so I think that deck exists, but no one wants to try to build it. And honestly, it'd be like a vile deck. Like I honestly like, and this is just a stupid way of looking at it as a Merfolk player, but I could see elves being played like Merfolk. It's just
I
it's
could
just
see that.
green. It's green Merfolk. But you have like a way better spreading season than we do because you have Yavimaya, Cradle of Growth. You just it's the land that turns everything into forests.
I love Yavimaya. That card is so good. Uh, I don't know. It just there's something about like dropping five elves and then an Inzuri and then just like overrunning them, and you just
Yeah.
feel great. It's wholesome, and you won, and it's like, everything is right in the world. Like playing your heritage druids and your whatever, and it's like good, clean fun.
Hmm.
Um,
But the problem, it doesn't work anymore. That's the
no, it
problem.
doesn't. And so now I gotta go back to the drawing board, or better, let somebody else do it for me and then copy their deck.
Yeah, so I mean that's basically what it comes down to. You're a lot of these deck the it's a sort of a big problem. If you're really good at Magic, people don't like to pigeonhole themselves or handicap themselves by playing like a tier 3 deck and then trying to make the best out of it. Because
Mm.
if you want to win a big tournament, a lot of them just want to just pick up the best deck, just play it, and that's their greatest advantage they could possibly have. It also minimizes how much time you have to like put into working on that deck because you already know it's amazing. It's really, really good. But I personally just love the style of Merfolk, and like I said, the thing that keeps me around is that I do like grinding and
I think that's
discovering what that
awesome.
best deck is, and that's what motivates me even in a completely changing environment. And it's changing. I would like it to change a little less. Like it's becoming, it feels like, oh, this is a completely different format. Oh, this is a completely different format again. I
Yeah,
like to
like
slow down just a little bit. That would be, I would like that, Wizards, please.
yeah, like it's fine to have new cards show up, but at the same time, I want to enjoy these cards for more than 10 seconds.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
let me actually play the deck. Like let me play the cards you gave me, man. Like
Hmm.
let me just play and enjoy myself. But you had some really great insights, man. This is really you have helped me think of, like, it's weird to say this, but like what you're saying applies to Commander really, really well.
Hmm.
Because Commander decks, people will build a deck and then it'll just kind of be like a time capsule of that year that you were building it in. And then
Exactly.
they'll be like, oh man, all these new cards are overpowered and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, when was the last time you updated anything in that deck? I would never change anything. It's fully foiled out. And I'm like, okay, well, um,
Buy more
15 years
foils.
have passed.
Yep, 15 years have passed, and you got to understand, like, the game is constantly changing. Like that's the name of
Yeah.
the game. It's not like Wizard says, "Okay, that's it. We're not printing any more cards anymore." They're printing a new set every single quarter, and on top for Commander,
I
it's
thought you
even
were about
more
to say
than
every
that.
single day. And I'm like, yeah, pretty much.
For Commander, every single day you have Commander sets on top of everything
Oh.
else. So you have to change if you want to keep up with the metagame. You have to. You have no choice, and so that's when you have to sort of look at the deck and determine, hey, what's not up to scuff these days, and update it with the new cards.
So, if they were to bring back a card from pre-modern into modern, what would you want them to do? Like, what is your
True name
dream?
Nemesis. Give me true. It'd be worthless in modern, but I would like it a lot. True name Nemesis is actually seeing no play in Legacy. Nothing. It is so bad. It is, and there's so many answers between Edict Effects and Plague Engineer and like and yeah, there's, it barely sees play. I would like it though. I will still play it as a Merfolk player. Just give it to me. I thought they'd do it in like Modern Horizons 2, and then they didn't. Then I thought they'd do it in Modern Horizons 3, and they still didn't do it. Anyway, I would like that one in modern.
The idea of true name Nemesis showing up in modern and knowing that it would do like the barest minimal is so funny to me because that card was such a boogeyman for so
It,
long.
it was. It's still. You talk about it today. Like I talk to modern players, they're like, "You can't print True Name Nemesis in modern. That is an abomination. It'll take over the format." I'm like, "What are you even talking about? This card will do absolutely nothing. People are
Oh yeah.
going way over the top of you, and it's such a slow clock. You get this 3-1 in play by
Ooh.
turn 3. Uh,
Yeah.
I mean, you can be dead by turn 4
Yeah,
by
right.
some of the archetypes.
They're like, that's cute. Hit
Yeah,
you for
exactly. It's now
13 with my Murktide. Call it day.
exactly. Yeah, people are just like, it's a cute little true name Nemesis that you have. That's how they treat it in Legacy right now. It's
Yeah.
not a serious card.
All right, my dude. Uh, this has been a lovely conversation, man. Thank you so much. It's nice to know that you are as exuberant here as you are in the videos I've seen. Because like, and it's
I'm a very animated person.
I like Magic players who enjoy themselves. We should be having more fun. And so,
It's a game after all, I hear.
you know, you would think,
Yeah, yeah,
you
I
would think.
know.
But if folks wanted to find you and see your stuff, where could they go?
Anything with Nikachu MTG on it. So Nikachu MTG on YouTube, on Twitter. I technically have an Instagram, but I barely post there. Shout out to all my Instagram followers. And randomly Twitch if I ever go back there.
And as always, my friends, you can find me at Gearpuri Gears. You can find this show anywhere podcasts are sold or at YouTube every Tuesday, thanks to my editor, Dan. You can also hear me on Shivam, Wheeler Love Magic, or on the Chronicles Dragonlance podcast, because I like the sound of my own voice. But remember, my friends, it's not magic without the gathering, and we'll see you next time.